Sign it, Malcolm. If I'm such a burden, then end it. The words cracked through the quiet kitchen like glass shattering. The pen hit the marble countertop. His hand shook. And upstairs, his mother was listening. Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever said something in anger you didn't mean, only to realize it was already too late? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe love is worth fighting for, subscribe and stay with me. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Atlanta mornings move fast. Traffic builds before 7 a.m. Waffle House signs glow on street corners. Radio hosts argue about Falcons football while commuters grip coffee cups in bumper-to-bumper lanes on I-285. Malcolm Reed used to love mornings. He would wake before sunrise in their Buckhead townhouse, lace up his sneakers, and run past manicured lawns and iron gates. Cleared his head. Lately, it only reminded him how heavy everything felt. He wasn't poor, not even close. He owned 2 successful logistics companies across Georgia and Tennessee. He worked hard, built it from scratch after college. No shortcuts, but what people didn't know, he was also the son of Evelyn Reed. And in Atlanta, that name carried weight. Evelyn Reed wasn't just wealthy. She was billionaire wealthy. Old money quiet, private foundations, scholarship programs at Morehouse and Spelman. Major investor in downtown development projects. But she never handed her son anything. Malcolm insisted on building his own lane. His wife, Camille, knew that. At least she used to. Camille Reed stood in their kitchen that morning, staring at her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. She looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. She worked as a pediatric nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital. 12-hour shifts, crying parents, tiny hands gripping her fingers. She loved her job, but she felt like she was losing her marriage. Malcolm had been distant for months. Late nights at the office. Short replies. Conversations that felt like meetings. "You good?" she asked him that morning as he poured coffee. "I'm fine, fine." She hated that word. "You don't talk anymore," she said softly. "I talk." "No," she replied. "You respond." He exhaled slowly. "I've got a lot on my plate." "So do I." He grabbed his keys. "I don't want to fight before 8 a.m., Camille. It's not a fight. It's a marriage." He paused at the door. For a second, she thought he might turn around. He didn't. What she didn't know, Evelyn Reed had moved into the guest house behind their townhouse 2 weeks earlier. Temporary, Malcolm had said. She was renovating her Midtown estate. But Evelyn had noticed something the moment she arrived. Silence. Not peaceful silence. Strained silence. The kind that lingers in hallways. She didn't interfere. She observed. A mother always knows when her child is hurting. And Malcolm was hurting. That evening, the tension snapped. Started small. Camille found a document on Malcolm's desk. A financial transfer agreement. Millions moved into a trust account. Signed by Evelyn Reed. Her stomach dropped. He had promised. No family money. No safety net. No interference. When he walked into the kitchen, she held the paper up. "You told me you didn't take her money." He froze. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" "It's leverage for an expansion deal. You said you'd build on your own." "I am. With her backing." His jaw tightened. "She's an investor. She's your mother." He stepped closer. "You don't understand how business works. And you don't understand how trust works." She shot back. The words hung thick in the air. Upstairs, in the guest suite, Evelyn closed her book quietly. Listening. Malcolm's voice lowered. "You think I wanted this? Then why do it?" "Because I'm tired of fighting alone," he said. The honesty surprised them both. Camille blinked. "Fighting what?" "Expectation," he said. "Pressure. Trying to prove I'm not just Evelyn Reed's son." She softened slightly. "You don't have to prove that to me." "I feel like I do," he replied. There it was. Pride, pressure, fear. But instead of leaning closer, they both stepped back. "You shut me out." she said quietly. You question everything I do. Because you stop explaining. And you stop believing. The argument rose. Voices louder. Pain sharper. Finally, she said it. Maybe we rushed this marriage. Silence fell hard. That sentence cut deeper than anything else. Malcolm stared at her. Is that what you think? I think we're not the same people we were. He nodded once. Slow. Controlled. Maybe we're not. He walked to his office. Opened a drawer. Pulled out papers. Camille's heart pounded. Malcolm. He placed the divorce documents on the kitchen counter. I had these drafted last week. The air left her lungs. You were planning this? I was preparing. For what? For the day we stopped choosing each other. Her eyes filled. You don't get to decide that alone. Maybe I already have. The pen hit the counter. That's when she shouted. Sign it, Malcolm. If I'm such a burden, then end it. And he did. He signed. Ink across paper. Sharp. Final. Upstairs, Evelyn closed her eyes. Because she knew something they didn't. Pride can look like strength. But it can destroy love faster than betrayal. Malcolm slid the papers toward Camille. Hand steady. Heart not. She stared at the signature. Years of memories reduced to black ink. You really want this? She whispered. He didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure. But he was too proud to say it. Camille stepped back. I never cared about your mother's money, she said softly. I cared about you. He swallowed, but said nothing. She walked upstairs. Door closing gently behind her. The house fell quiet again. Malcolm stood alone in the kitchen. Divorce papers between his fingers. And outside, Atlanta traffic moved like nothing had changed. But upstairs, Evelyn Reed picked up her phone. Not to interfere. Not yet, but to prepare. Because if her son was about to throw away his marriage, she needed to know whether Camille was the problem, or the woman worth protecting. And what she discovered next would change everything. The knock came at 6:12 a.m. Sharp. Controlled. Not angry. Certain. Camille opened the door in sweatpants and bare feet, and froze. Evelyn Reed stood on the porch in a tailored cream suit, diamonds quiet at her ears, eyes calm but unreadable. We need to talk, she said. No greeting, no smile, just truth at the door. Before we go further, have you ever had a conversation you knew could change everything? The kind where your heart beats before a single word is said? Stay with me, because this one, it shifts the entire story. Atlanta mornings don't slow down for heartbreak. School buses rolled down Peachtree Street. Neighbors walked dogs past manicured hedges. A delivery truck idled 2 houses down. Inside the townhouse, everything felt still. Camille stepped aside. Evelyn walked in. Not rushed. Not dramatic. She moved through the living room like she was assessing a boardroom. Malcolm was already gone. Left before sunrise. Avoidance was easier than accountability. Evelyn noticed the unsigned copy of the divorce papers on the coffee table. She didn't touch them. Instead, she sat. Did he explain why? Evelyn asked calmly. Camille crossed her arms, unsure whether this was judgment or interrogation. He said we stopped choosing each other. And did you? The question was simple, direct. Camille hesitated. I tried, she said quietly. Evelyn studied her face. Not for weakness, for truth. My son is stubborn, Evelyn said. He gets that from me. Camille almost smiled. Almost. He thinks strength means silence, Evelyn continued. It doesn't. Silence settled between them. Then Camille asked the question that had been sitting heavy on her chest. Why did you give him that money? Evelyn didn't flinch. Because he wouldn't ask. That wasn't the deal. I know. Camille's jaw tightened. He promised me we'd build without it. And he meant that, Evelyn replied. Then why step in? Evelyn leaned back slightly. Because I saw the pressure swallowing him. That landed. Camille blinked. He wouldn't tell you that, Evelyn said. But I could see it. Camille's voice softened. He wouldn't tell me either. There it was. Not betrayal. Not greed. Pride. The collision wasn't money. It was fear neither of them admitted. Across town, Malcolm sat in his downtown Atlanta office staring at the skyline. Glass towers reflected morning light. Cars crawled along the connector. His phone buzzed. One missed call from his mother. He didn't return it. He didn't want to hear her opinion. He didn't want to hear regret in her voice either. He told himself signing the papers was decisive. Clean. Controlled. But his chest felt tight. He replayed Camille's words. I cared about you. Not your money. Not your last name. You. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time, success felt quiet. Empty. Back at the townhouse, Evelyn stood. I did not raise my son to throw away a good woman over wounded pride, she said calmly. Camille's heart skipped. You think I'm a good woman? I think you married him when he had nothing but a leased car and ambition, Evelyn replied. That tells me enough. Emotion flickered across Camille's face. Then why are we here? She asked. Because I need to know something. Evelyn stepped closer. If he walked away from the business tomorrow, would you still choose him? The question cut through everything. Camille didn't hesitate. Yes. No pause. No calculation. Just yes. Evelyn nodded once. Then something shifted in her expression. Protective. Fierce. Not against Camille. For her. My son thinks this divorce protects his pride, Evelyn said. It doesn't. It exposes his fear. Camille swallowed. Fear of what? Being seen as less than me. That truth felt heavy. Then why let him take the money? Camille asked. Evelyn's voice lowered. Because sometimes a mother helps her child, even when he doesn't understand why. She walked toward the door. Camille followed. Are you trying to stop the divorce? Camille asked. Evelyn paused at the threshold. I'm trying to understand whether it deserves to happen. And, Camille pressed. Evelyn looked at her fully now. If my son loses you because of ego, he will regret it for the rest of his life. Then she added, but regret is a lesson some men have to earn. And she left. That afternoon, Malcolm received an email. From his mother's foundation. Subject line, Trust Agreement Revision. He opened it. The funds she transferred? Frozen. Temporarily suspended pending family alignment. His jaw tightened. He called her immediately. You can't do that, he said. I just did. Evelyn replied calmly. You're sabotaging me. I'm protecting you. From what? Yourself. Silence. You signed divorce papers last night, she continued. Are you sure that was strategy and not emotion? He exhaled sharply. This isn't your business. You are my business, she said evenly. Always. He closed his eyes. You don't understand. I understand more than you think, she replied. The question is, do you? The line went dead. Malcolm sat there, phone still in his hand. For the first time since signing those papers, control slipped. The expansion deal depended on that trust. The trust depended on family alignment. And family alignment now depended on something he thought he already ended. His marriage. Back in Buckhead, Camille stood alone in the kitchen again. The signed papers still lay on the counter. Ink dry. But something no longer felt final. Because now she knew. The billionaire mother wasn't against her. She was watching, waiting, measuring. And Malcolm? He was about to realize that signing those papers was the easy part. Undoing them would cost him far more than pride. I don't need her money, and I don't need her interference. Malcolm's voice echoed through his downtown Atlanta office. But when he hung up the phone, the silence answered back. Loud, empty. Let me ask you something. Have you ever doubled down on a decision? Not because it was right, but because admitting you were wrong felt worse? That's where Malcolm was standing. Not in his marriage. In his pride. Atlanta moved like it always did. MARTA trains sliding past 5 Points. Food trucks lining up near Centennial Park. Church signs on street corners reading Faith over Fear. Malcolm sat behind his glass desk staring at spreadsheets. Numbers he used to understand clearly now blurred together. His assistant knocked softly. Mr. Reed, the board wants an update on the trust delay. Of course they did. Word traveled fast in business circles. Tell them it's temporary, he said. Is it? He hesitated. Yes, but he wasn't sure. Because his mother never made temporary moves. Only intentional ones. Across the city at Grady Memorial Hospital, Camille finished a long shift. She washed her hands slowly at the sink in the break room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A small TV in the corner played local news. A business headline flashed across the screen. Reed Logistics Expansion Faces Internal Delay. Her stomach dropped. She didn't need details. She knew. Evelyn. This wasn't coincidence. It was leverage. One of the nurses glanced at her. Isn't that your husband? Camille forced a calm nod. We're separated, she said quietly. The word felt strange in her mouth. Separated. Not divorced. Not yet, but close. That evening, Malcolm drove home earlier than usual. The Buckhead streets were quiet. Neighbors walking dogs. Porch lights flickering on. When he stepped inside, the house felt hollow. Camille's shoes were gone from the hallway. Her framed photos missing from the console table. She had moved some things. Not everything. Just enough to signal distance. Upstairs, he found her packing a small suitcase. You leaving? He asked. Just staying with my sister in Decatur for a few days. He nodded once. You don't have to. I do. Silence stretched between them. I heard about the expansion delay, she said softly. He stiffened. You watching the news now? It's hard not to. It'll get fixed. She studied him carefully. Is this because of your mom? That's between us. I'm part of US, Malcolm. Not anymore, he said too quickly. The words hung heavy. She paused mid-fold. Is that what you want? He didn't answer, because the truth felt complicated. He wanted control. He wanted stability. He wanted respect. But what he didn't want was to feel like he failed. You signed the papers, she reminded him. You told me to. I was hurt. So was I. They stood there, two wounded people pretending strength. You think I don't see what this really is? She asked quietly. What? You're scared. His jaw tightened. Of what? Of not being enough without your mom's backing. That one hit. He stepped back slightly. You don't understand the pressure. Then let me, she said. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And for a second, he almost spoke. Almost admitted how exhausting it was to carry the Reed name in Atlanta. How investors compared him to his mother. How articles always mentioned billionaire heir instead of self-made CEO. But instead, he chose denial. I don't need help, he said firmly. Then why does it feel like you're drowning? She replied. The room fell quiet again. Outside, a car drove past slowly. Life continuing like nothing was breaking inside. Later that night, Evelyn invited Malcolm to dinner at her Midtown estate. A place he rarely visited. Tall iron gates. Historic brick exterior. Quiet wealth. They sat across from each other at a long dining table. White plates. Crystal glasses. Controlled atmosphere. You froze the trust, he said without greeting. Yes. You embarrassed me. I corrected you. His eyes narrowed. By interfering? By protecting what you're about to destroy. This is my marriage. And your legacy, she replied. He leaned forward. You think Camille married me for money? Evelyn's expression didn't change. No. The certainty surprised him. Then why question this? He asked. Because I know a woman who loves you when I see one. He hesitated. She challenges you, Evelyn continued. That threatens your pride. He exhaled slowly. You don't know what it's like, he said. Living under your shadow. Evelyn's voice softened slightly. I built something so you wouldn't have to struggle. And now I have to prove I didn't use it. Silence. That was the root. Not Camille. Not business. Identity. You signed divorce papers, Evelyn said calmly. But you haven't filed them. He looked up sharply. I haven't decided. You already did when you let ego speak louder than love. Her words didn't rise. They didn't need to. You want the trust restored? She asked. Yes. Then answer one question. He waited. Do you want your wife back? Or do you just want to win? The question settled like weight on his chest. Because he didn't know. And not knowing scared him more than losing the deal. Back in Decatur, Camille sat on her sister's couch scrolling through old photos on her phone. Beach trips to Tybee Island. Late-night cookouts in their backyard. Laughing in their first apartment when money was tight. He had been different then. Lighter. More open. She wiped at her eyes. Not because she missed luxury, but because she missed partnership. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated. Answered. Camille? The voice asked. Yes. This is Evelyn. Camille sat up slowly. I need to see you, Evelyn said. Alone. The tone wasn't cold. It was decisive. And suddenly, this wasn't just about a marriage anymore. It was about truth. And when billionaire mothers start asking private questions, someone's pride is about to be tested. Sit down, Camille. I'm not here to intimidate you. Evelyn's voice was calm, controlled, but it carried weight. They were seated at a quiet cafe in Midtown Atlanta. Not one of the flashy spots near the high-rises. This one was tucked between an old bookstore and a small art gallery. The kind of place with chipped wooden tables and strong coffee. Neutral ground. Camille wrapped her hands around her cup, trying to steady her breathing. I'm not intimidated, she said softly. Evelyn gave a slight nod. Good. Outside, traffic rolled past on Peachtree Street. Office workers hurried by in suits. The city kept moving, unaware that a marriage was sitting at a crossroads inside that cafe. I need honesty from you, Evelyn said. You'll get it. Do you love my son? No hesitation. Yes. Evelyn studied her face. Even now. Yes. The answer came with tears Camille didn't bother hiding. I don't love his pride, she added. I don't love the silence. I don't love feeling like I'm competing with his fear. But you love him. Yes. Evelyn leaned back slowly. Good. Camille blinked. Good. Yes. Because if you said no, I would let this end. The words were firm. Not threatening. Just clear. Camille swallowed. Why are you really here? Evelyn folded her hands neatly on the table. My son thinks strength means standing alone, she said. He gets that from his father. Camille listened closely. But real strength, Evelyn continued, is letting someone stand beside you. Then why did you freeze the trust? Camille asked. Because I needed to see what he values more. His marriage or his image? The honesty startled her. You're testing him? I'm revealing him. Camille sat back. So what happens now? That depends on what you're willing to fight for. The question hung in the air. I'm tired of fighting alone, Camille admitted. And he is tired of feeling measured, Evelyn replied. They both sat in that truth. Two women who loved the same man. Not in competition, in concern. Across town, Malcolm received a calendar invite from his mother's assistant. Family meeting, 7 p.m., Midtown Estate. Attendance required. He stared at it. Attendance required. Like he was 10 again. He almost declined. But something told him not to. That evening, Malcolm walked into the estate's formal sitting room. Camille was already there. He froze. You set this up? He asked his mother. Yes. This is not a board meeting, he said sharply. No, Evelyn replied. It's more important. The room felt heavy. Tall ceilings. Soft lighting. Family portraits lining the walls. Generations of Reed legacy staring down. Why is she here? Malcolm asked. Because she's your wife, Evelyn answered. Not for long. Evelyn's voice sharpened slightly. Do not speak final words before you understand them. Camille stood slowly. If you want this to end, say it clearly, she said to Malcolm. Not with pride. Not with anger. Just truth. He looked between them, cornered, forced to feel. I signed the papers, he said. Yes, Camille replied. But you didn't file them. Silence. Evelyn stepped forward. I froze the trust because I wanted to see whether you would fight harder for your company or your marriage. That's manipulation, Malcolm shot back. No, she said calmly. It's protection. For who? For the family you're about to lose. The words hit harder than he expected. Camille's voice softened. I don't need your money, Malcolm. I never did. I know that. Then why do you act like loving me makes you weak? He opened his mouth, closed it, because the answer wasn't simple. I feel like I'm always being compared, he admitted quietly. To her success, to her power. Evelyn didn't flinch. I built my life, she said, so you wouldn't feel small. If you feel small, that's not because of me. Malcolm ran a hand through his hair. I just wanted to prove I could do it alone. And you did, Camille said. But you don't have to live alone to prove that. The room went still. For the first time, no one was yelling. No one was defending. Just truth sitting between them. Evelyn stepped back. This is where I stop speaking, she said. What happens next is yours. She left the room. No dramatic exit. Just space. Now it was just Malcolm and Camille. The air felt thick. I don't want to lose you, he said finally. Then stop pushing me away, she replied. He looked at her. Really looked. Not as opposition. Not as pressure. But as partner. I'm scared, he admitted. The words barely above a whisper. She stepped closer. I know. And if I fail? We fail together, she said. Or we win together. But we don't stand alone. His eyes stung slightly. Something in him cracked. Not weakness. Armor. But cracks don't mean healing yet. They mean exposure. I need time, he said. She nodded. I can give you time, she replied. I just can't give you silence. He understood that. And for the first time since signing those papers, hope flickered. Small. Fragile. But real. Outside, Atlanta's skyline glowed against the night. Inside that estate, pride had been challenged. But it hadn't surrendered yet. And the next move Malcolm made would determine whether those divorce papers stayed ink on paper or became a mistake he would regret forever. The papers were still in Malcolm's briefcase. Signed. Folded. Not filed. That detail mattered more than he wanted to admit. 3 days after the meeting at his mother's estate, Malcolm stood alone in his downtown Atlanta office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Centennial Olympic Park. Tourists moved like small dots below. The world looked steady from up here. His phone buzzed. Investor call. Singapore partner. Legal team. Life didn't pause because his marriage was cracking. He pressed decline. For the first time in years. He opened his briefcase slowly. Pulled the divorce papers out. Ran his thumb over his signature. The ink looked confident. He didn't feel that way. Across town, Camille finished a shift at Grady Memorial. A child had coded that afternoon. They saved him. Barely. Her hands still felt the echo of urgency. Life and loss didn't argue. They decided fast. Marriage was slower. Messier. She sat in her car in the hospital parking deck and stared at the Atlanta skyline. She loved Malcolm. That was the problem. It would be easier if she didn't. Her phone lit up. A text from him. Can we talk? Not at my mom's. Not at the house. Just us. She stared at it. Typed back. Where? Piedmont Park. 7 p.m. Neutral ground again. Maybe that mattered. The sun dipped low over Midtown when they met near the walking trail. Joggers passed by. Couple walked their dog. Someone played music softly from a portable speaker. Normal life. Malcolm stood near a bench, hands in his coat pockets. You came, he said. You asked. They sat down. A long silence settled between them. Not angry, just heavy. I've been thinking, he started. That's usually dangerous, she replied softly. A small smile flickered, then disappeared. I built everything trying not to be Evelyn Reed's son, he said. But somewhere in that, I stopped being your husband. She didn't interrupt. He needed to say it without being guided. I thought taking her investment would finally prove something, he continued. But instead, It made me feel like I failed. You didn't fail, she said gently. I felt like I did. He looked out at the skyline. I felt like if I leaned on you too much, that meant I couldn't stand on my own. That's not how partnership works, she replied. I know that now. The words were quiet, honest. But knowing doesn't fix what I broke, he added. Her chest tightened. No, she said. It doesn't. They sat in the sound of wind moving through the trees. Cars rushing in the distance. I never wanted your mother's money, she said softly. I wanted your trust. He nodded. I know. You stopped talking to me. I thought I was protecting you from stress. I didn't need protection, she replied. I needed access. That landed. Access. Not perfection. Not wealth. Access to his fear, his doubt, his pressure. Malcolm leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Do what? Be strong and vulnerable at the same time. She studied him carefully. That's what I've been asking for. He finally looked at her fully. And if I learn? He asked. Then maybe we try again, she said. Maybe. I won't beg to stay, she replied calmly. I won't compete with your pride. If we do this, it's equal. Equal. The word felt heavier than any contract he'd signed. Meanwhile, at her Midtown estate, Evelyn reviewed financial reports. The trust remained frozen. She wasn't punishing him. She was waiting. Her assistant stepped in. Ma'am, the board is asking when the capital will release. When my son chooses wisely, she replied without looking up. And if he doesn't? Evelyn closed the folder slowly. Then he learns the hard way. She wasn't cruel. She was protective. But protection sometimes meant allowing pain. Back at Piedmont Park, Malcolm reached into his coat pocket. Camille's breath caught for a second. He pulled out the folded divorce papers, held them in his hands. I signed these out of anger, he said. And fear, she added softly. Yes. He looked at her. If I tear them up, it doesn't fix everything. No. But it means I'm willing to try. Her heart pounded. He paused, the paper trembling slightly in his grip. This is the part where I don't know what happens next, he admitted. Neither do I, she said. They locked eyes. No pride, no defense. Just two people at the edge of decision. Do you still choose me? He asked. The question was raw. She didn't answer immediately, because choosing someone isn't about history. It's about future. I choose growth, she said finally. If you're part of that, then yes. Not blind loyalty. Not desperation. Choice. Malcolm inhaled slowly. Then, he ripped the papers in half. The sound was sharp in the evening air. Joggers nearby didn't notice. But for them, it felt loud. He tore them again. And again. White pieces falling onto the grass. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just final in a different way. He exhaled. I don't want to win, he said quietly. I want us. Her eyes filled, but she held steady. This doesn't erase what happened, she said. I know. We'll need counseling. Okay. We'll need transparency. Okay. And your mother? He almost smiled. She's been waiting for me to figure this out. Camille let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The skyline glowed behind them. Atlanta steady as ever. But healing isn't instant. It's fragile. And just as hope began to settle between them, Malcolm's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He frowned and answered. Mr. Reed, a voice said. This is regarding a pending lawsuit against your company. His stomach dropped. What lawsuit? Camille watched his face change. Color draining. Fear returning. Because sometimes, just when love finds its footing, life tests whether it can survive pressure. And this new storm? It was bigger than pride, bigger than money, and it was about to force them to choose each other or fall apart for good. It's a wrongful termination suit. Malcolm's voice was low as he ended the call. Piedmont Park no longer felt peaceful. Camille stood in front of him, searching his face. From who? She asked. A former operations manager. Says we forced him out and violated contract terms. Did you? No, Malcolm said quickly. Then slower. Not intentionally. That word lingered. Not intentionally. The Atlanta skyline glowed behind them, but the air between them shifted again. How serious is it? Camille asked. They're asking for damages, public filing, media attention, and your mother's trust? He swallowed. If this goes public, the board will panic. Silence. 3 minutes ago, they were tearing up divorce papers. Now they were staring at another storm. Are we okay? Camille asked quietly. He looked at her. I don't know. Honest. Not comforting. The next morning, Atlanta Business Radio carried the story. Reed Logistics faces legal scrutiny amid expansion plans. Commentators speculated. Competitors circled. In his downtown office, Malcolm met with attorneys. Conference room glass walls. Tight expressions. Legal pads filling with notes. It's weak but loud, one lawyer said. If it sticks, it damages reputation. Settle? Malcolm asked. That looks like guilt. Fight it. That takes time. Time was the one thing his expansion didn't have. His phone buzzed. His mother. He stepped outside the conference room to answer. I assume you've heard, he said. I have, Evelyn replied calmly. You think this is about the trust? No, she said. I think this is about leadership. He leaned against the hallway wall. Mom, not now. Yes, now, she said evenly. Pressure doesn't create character. It reveals it. I don't have time for lessons. You don't have time for ego either. He closed his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying your marriage survived one test. This is the next. Across town at Grady Memorial, Camille watched the headline scroll across a nurse's phone. Isn't that your husband's company? Someone whispered. She nodded. Her chest tightened, but not from embarrassment, from concern. She stepped into a quiet hallway and called Malcolm. He answered on the second ring. You good? She asked. He almost laughed. Not really. Tell me. He hesitated. Old habits rising. Then he remembered the park. Access. They're digging into everything, he said. If this becomes public court, investors pull back. The expansion dies. And you? She asked. I look incompetent. You're not. That's not how headlines work. She leaned against the hospital wall. Do you want me there? She asked. The question caught him off guard. You'd come. Yes. No pride. No hesitation. He exhaled slowly. Yes, I want you here. That evening, Camille walked into his office building in downtown Atlanta. Security recognized her. The staff watched quietly as she stepped into the elevator. Word had already spread. Inside the conference room, Malcolm looked up when she entered. For a second, he looked relieved. Not proud. Relieved. She sat beside him. Not behind. Not across. Beside. The lawyers paused slightly, then continued briefing. Documents. Timelines. Risk analysis. Camille didn't interrupt. She listened. When the meeting ended, the room emptied slowly. It was just them. You didn't have to come, he said. I wanted to. He rubbed his forehead. I feel like I can't breathe. She stepped closer. Then stop trying to carry it alone. He looked at her. You sure you want this life? He asked quietly. It's not simple. I don't need simple, she replied. I need honest. He swallowed hard. This could get ugly. Then we face ugly together. That word again. Together. He nodded slowly. Later that night, they drove back to Buckhead in silence. Streetlights reflected off the windshield. Atlanta traffic slower now. Halfway home, Malcolm's phone rang again. His attorney. He answered on speaker. Malcolm, new development, the lawyer said. The former manager has backing. From who? Malcolm asked. A pause. An investor group trying to block your expansion. His jaw tightened. So this is strategic. Yes. Camille watched his grip tighten on the steering wheel. This is bigger than a lawsuit, the lawyer continued. It's leverage. The call ended. Malcolm pulled the car into their driveway but didn't turn off the engine. "They're trying to break me before I grow," he said. "Then don't break," Camille replied. He looked at her. "I almost broke us." "But you didn't," she said softly. He shut off the engine. Silence filled the car. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Me too," she said. Honesty felt different now. Less threatening. More connecting. They stepped out of the car and walked toward the house. Lights on inside. The guest house behind it glowing faintly. His mother was awake. Watching. Waiting. When they entered the kitchen, Evelyn was already there. Calm. Composed. "I assume you've heard," Malcolm said. "I have," she replied. And now we see what kind of leader you truly are." He exhaled. "This could damage everything." Evelyn's eyes moved to Camille. "And what about that?" she asked gently. Malcolm followed her gaze. Camille stood steady beside him. Not fragile. Not fleeing. With him. He straightened slightly. "I'm not fighting alone this time," he said. Evelyn studied him carefully. Something softened in her expression. "Good," she said quietly, "because storms don't just test businesses. They test marriages." And as the lawsuit prepared to explode into public headlines, Malcolm realized something heavy. If he handled this wrong, he wouldn't just lose investors. He'd lose the woman who chose him when he was uncertain. And this time, there would be no papers left to tear up. The lawsuit went public on a Tuesday morning. By noon, every Atlanta business blog had picked it up. By 3, cable news mentioned his name. Not as a rising black entrepreneur. Not as a self-made CEO. But as a company under investigation. Malcolm stood at the window of his downtown office and watched helicopters hover near Centennial Olympic Park. He didn't know if they were there for him. Felt like they were. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors. Board members. Reporters. He silenced it. For the first time in years, he let the noise sit unanswered. At Grady Memorial, Camille felt the shift too. A parent in the hallway glanced at her twice. A nurse whispered near the vending machines. She could leave early. Hide. But she didn't. She finished her shift. Held small hands. Spoke calmly to anxious families. Because crisis doesn't pause real life. After work, she drove straight downtown. Not to argue. Not to fix. To stand. Malcolm's conference room was packed when she arrived. Attorneys speaking in low voices. Screens filled with legal language. Charts tracking public reaction. Evelyn sat at the far end of the table. Composed. Still. When Camille entered, Malcolm's shoulders relaxed just slightly. "Give us a minute," he told the room. The lawyers stepped out. Evelyn remained. "This affects the family name," she said evenly. "It's not proven," Malcolm replied. "It doesn't have to be proven to cause damage." Camille stepped closer. "What's the truth?" she asked. Malcolm met her eyes. "We pushed him out," he admitted. "He wasn't performing. But we didn't document everything cleanly. So there's room for doubt," Camille said. "Yes." Evelyn nodded once. "Then you do not hide," she said. "You face it." Malcolm looked tired. "If I go public, I risk more scrutiny. If you stay silent, you look guilty," Evelyn replied. The room went quiet. Malcolm's entire career had been built on control. Now control was gone. He looked at Camille. "What would you do?" he asked. "Not as CEO. As husband." She took a slow breath. "I'd tell the truth," she said. "Even if it costs you." The answer was simple. Clear. Scary. Evelyn studied them both. "This is the moment," she said. "You either lead with fear or integrity." That evening, Malcolm called a press conference. Atlanta's business media gathered in a modest event space near his office. No dramatic stage. No polished production. Just a podium. Cameras. Questions waiting. Camille stood off to the side. Not hidden. Not spotlighted. Present. Evelyn remained in the back row, silent. Malcolm stepped to the podium. For a brief second, doubt flickered across his face. Then he began. "My company is facing allegations regarding a former employee," he said steadily. We did not intend harm, but we recognize that our process may not have been handled with the transparency it deserved. Murmurs moved through the room. He didn't stop. We are opening an independent review. If mistakes were made, we will correct them. No blaming, no deflection, just ownership. A reporter raised a hand. Are you concerned this will impact your expansion plans? He paused. Yes, he answered. But expansion means nothing if the foundation isn't strong. That line carried, because it wasn't just about business. It was about marriage, about identity, about pride. When the conference ended, the room buzzed with reaction. But something inside Malcolm felt lighter, not safe, not secure, but honest. Outside, the Atlanta air felt thick and warm. Camille approached him slowly. You didn't hide, she said. I almost did. But you didn't. He looked at her carefully. You stayed. Yes. Not because of money. Not because of legacy. Because she chose him. Evelyn stepped forward then. You led well, she said simply. Malcolm met her eyes. For the first time, I wasn't trying to beat your shadow. She gave a small nod. That's because you finally stepped out of it. Silence passed between mother and son. Not competitive. Understanding. That night, Malcolm and Camille sat on the back patio of their Buckhead home. No phones. No television. Just quiet Georgia air and distant city noise. I don't know what happens next, he admitted. Me neither, she said. The lawsuit could drag on. Investors could hesitate. The expansion could slow. Everything was uncertain. But one thing felt different. He reached for her hand. I choose you, he said quietly. No audience. No pressure. Just truth. She squeezed his hand back. I choose you too. Not because it was easy. Because it was earned. Inside the guest house, Evelyn watched through the window. Not interfering. Not directing. Just observing. Her son had faced pressure without running. He had chosen integrity over image, and love over pride. But reckoning doesn't end with one brave moment. It tests consistency. The lawsuit wasn't settled yet. The board hadn't voted. The world hadn't fully reacted. And tomorrow, the independent review would begin. If it uncovered deeper mistakes, everything could fall apart again. Marriage, legacy, reputation. Because sometimes the hardest part isn't saying, I choose you. It's proving it when the next storm hits. And that storm? It was already forming. The review lasted 6 weeks. 6 long weeks of headlines, interviews, and quiet tension. Atlanta talked. Radio hosts debated. Business blogs speculated. But Malcolm didn't hide again. He showed up to every meeting, answered every question, sat through uncomfortable conversations. Camille watched the change closely. Not the public version, the private one. He asked her how her shift went. He told her when he felt overwhelmed. He stopped pretending to be unshakable. And that mattered more than the lawsuit. On a warm Friday morning, the final report was delivered. Minor procedural failures. No malicious intent. Mandatory policy updates. Financial settlement smaller than expected. Public statement issued. Stock dipped slightly, then stabilized. Expansion delayed. Not destroyed. Malcolm sat in his office holding the report. He didn't feel victorious. He felt steady. That was new. His phone buzzed. His mother. Well? Evelyn asked. We survived, he said. No, she corrected gently. You grew. He looked out at the Atlanta skyline. For the first time, he didn't see pressure. He saw responsibility. There was a difference. That evening, he drove home early. Traffic on GA 400 moved slow, but he didn't rush. He pulled into the driveway in Buckhead just before sunset. Camille was sitting on the back steps. Shoes off, hair tied back, quiet. He walked toward her. It's over, he said softly. She searched his face. For now, he added. She smiled slightly. That's enough. He sat beside her. No dramatic speeches. No grand gestures. Just presence. I used to think strength meant never bending, he said. And now, Now I think it means knowing what's worth protecting. She studied him. And what's that? He didn't hesitate. You. Simple. Clear. Real. Later that night, Evelyn joined them for dinner. No formal dining room. No crystal glasses. Just takeout from a black-owned restaurant down the street. Laughter came easier. Not forced. Earned. At one point, Evelyn looked at Camille. I may have tested my son, she said calmly. But I never doubted you. Camille met her gaze. I know. And I'm proud of the woman who stands beside him. It wasn't loud praise, but it carried weight. Malcolm looked between them. Two strong women. Not competing. Connected. The tension that once filled this house felt distant. Replaced with something quieter. Healthier. A month later, the expansion resumed. Slower. More intentional. Malcolm restructured leadership. Improved documentation. Created mentorship programs for young Black entrepreneurs in Atlanta. He stopped chasing headlines. He started building legacy. And at home, something else shifted too. One evening, as they walked through Piedmont Park again, Malcolm stopped near the same bench where he once tore up divorce papers. You remember this spot? He asked. I do. I almost lost everything here. She looked at him gently. But you didn't. He reached into his jacket pocket. Camille's heart skipped for half a second. Not fear. Anticipation. He pulled out a small velvet box. She stared at him. You're already my husband, she said softly. I know, he replied. But I want to renew this. Not because we almost lost it, but because we rebuilt it. He opened the box. Inside was a simple band. No oversized diamond. No statement piece. Just solid gold. I choose you, he said again. Not out of pride. Not out of pressure. But because life makes more sense with you beside me. Tears filled her eyes. Malcolm, I'm not perfect, he continued. But I'm present. She nodded slowly. That's all I ever wanted. He slid the ring onto her finger. Not as a restart. As reinforcement. Joggers passed. Dogs barked. Atlanta moved around them. But in that moment, everything felt still. Grounded. Secure. That night, as they drove home, Camille rested her head against the window. You good? He asked gently. She smiled. I am. And she meant it. Not because life would never challenge them again, but because they now knew how to face challenge. Together. Inside the guest house, Evelyn watched them return. She didn't intervene. Didn't orchestrate. Her son had found his own balance. She poured herself a cup of tea and looked out at the city lights. Protection didn't mean control. It meant preparing someone to stand on their own. And Malcolm finally had. Love didn't look dramatic anymore. It looked like shared calendars. Honest talks. Holding hands during hard conversations. It looked like laughter in the kitchen. It looked like showing up when it mattered. And sometimes, the strongest marriages aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones that break pride, break fear, break silence, and rebuild something better. As Malcolm locked the doors that night, he glanced at Camille. She caught his eye. No tension, no doubt, just quiet understanding. The world had watched him almost lose everything. But what it didn't see was the moment he chose differently, the moment he stopped fighting alone. And sometimes, that choice is the real legacy, because storms will come again. Business will rise and fall. Headlines will change. But if the foundation stays strong, everything else can be rebuilt. And as Atlanta's skyline glowed outside their window, two people who almost walked away fell asleep, knowing they had chosen love on solid ground. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.